Is a sherry cask rum just a fancier spiced or flavoured rum? Now, I'm not here today to give you a definitive answer. I can't. But what I am here to do today is to kind of get you thinking. And I want to hear your opinions, because this subject we often have banter about in my Discord, in my membership community. And as yet, no one has really won the argument. Now, I know over time I'm going to have rum geeks, rum connoisseurs with passionate views about this. But I also know there's going to be a lot of rum newcomers just sitting there thinking, hang on, what's the difference between sherry cask rum and spiced and flavoured rum? And why is spiced and flavoured rum hated by the wider rum community, and yet sherry cask, well, that's pretty well loved? So today I'm going to get myself some splinters. I'm going to sit on the fence, but I'm going to put the arguments for and against, and I want you to make up your own minds. Hey rum fans. Oh, that's tasty. My name's Steve the Barman. I'm here to help you on your rum journey by mainly focusing on rums under £50. And if you want even more help, then don't forget to check out my free Discord, or even better, come and join us in the membership community, because there's even more amazing perks to be had. Links will be downstairs in the description. Right, so let's kind of explain what both things are. What is sherry cask rum and what is spiced and flavoured rum? I mean, this is going to be blindingly obvious to most of you, but it needs explaining. So for spiced and flavoured rums, I've just got a third bottle out. I don't know why I got 2 and 3, but let's even things up. We don't want either side to think, hang on, there's favouritism going on there. So spiced and flavoured rums. Essentially, we are taking a rum or a blend of rums and we are adding spices, fruit, all those kind of things to a rum to give it flavour. Now, these brands here are using real spices and real fruit. They are putting those into the rum, into the barrels, and letting all those flavours macerate or infuse, or whatever you want to call it, into that rum over a period of time. So these are what I would call proper spiced flavoured rums. Now, I'm not going to pick on any brands, but you've also got a certain amount of spiced and flavoured rum brands. Actually, the vast majority, I will say that, the vast majority, that simply will be taking a rum, whether they even know the origin of that rum, but they will be taking a rum and they will be using what I kind of call is flavour compounds, or cordials, if you like. They will just be adding that in a certain exact amount to that rum to flavour it up or spice it up. I just had shades of the Spice Girls there. Spice up your life. Get back on track, Barman. Stop thinking about the Spice Girls. Anyway, these are I'm not talking about these, but these brands that use these cordials or flavour compounds, they might still call these natural flavours. But let's be honest, they're not proper flavours. They're not proper in this respect. But either way, whether it's real fruit and spices, whether it's a flavour compound, they are still adding flavour to a rum. Humour me for 2 seconds. Which was your favourite Spice Girl? Drop that in the comments below. Anyway, now let's turn our attention to sherry cask rum. Now, this is kind of why I'm sitting on the fence in this video, because this is a category that I'm just starting to go down. I've got very little to no experience of sherry cask rums. And in fact, looking behind the bar, I've only really got 3 examples. So I really don't have the in-depth knowledge to really talk about this with any conviction and clarity. But what is blindingly obvious is that brands, again, will take their rums and instead of aging in bourbon barrels, in ex-whiskey cask barrels, they will be adding their rum to ex-sherry cask barrels. Barrels that have been used to age or hold sherry. Now, some brands will just solely age their rum in sherry casks. Other brands will add a rum in sherry and then blend it together with a rum from a bourbon cask. But essentially, we're talking about rums that may be aged for a year or may be aged for 3, 5, 8 years in sherry casks. So what's that going to do? That's going to take on, that rum is going to take on the flavour of the sherry that was previously in the cask. Now, let's be honest for a second. You get all types of sherry, from Fino, which is inherently the driest type of sherry, right up to PX and cream sherry, which are going to be the sweetest types of sherry. But let's face it, even the Fino sherry is going to have some level of sweetness to it, because All a sherry is essentially a wine and that's been aged, fortified, etc., etc. And all a wine is fermented grapes. So you've got a product that's inherently sweet because, let's face it, grapes, they're not bone dry. So to take that a step further, let's be open and honest here. A lot of brands don't have the knowledge of what that cask used to hold in it. Some brands I've spoken to cannot tell you whether it was Fino, whether it was PX, whether it was Cream, whether it was Amontillado. They simply don't know. They just know they're ex-sherry barrels. So not only could you argue the point that sherry cask rums are actually flavoured rums, but there is also a big case of arguing that actually aging rum in a sherry cask is a way of sweetening that up without actually adding sugar. But then you could take that whole argument on another step, because then you could argue that all rum is flavoured, because all rum will be aged in whiskey, bourbon, rye barrels, whatever they're using. So rums are going to take on the flavours of the whiskey that used to be in there. So because rum has been aged in whiskey barrels since the age of time, does that give sherry cask rum a free pass? And if you're going to make the argument that aging in sherry casks has been around a lot longer than spiced and flavoured rum, then you need to go and talk to all the people that come from the Caribbean, because believe you me, they have been adding spices and flavours and fruit to their rums since the age of time. Don't go thinking Morgan Spiced suddenly came up with this whole crazy spiced rum idea in the mid-90s. The simple fact is, spicing a rum and aging a rum in sherry casks has been around for a very long time. But it all comes back to this question at the start of the video. Whichever side of the fence you sit on, you cannot argue, you cannot deny that aging rum in sherry casks is essentially flavouring a rum up. And the same goes with port, the same goes with Madeira, the same goes for any kind of cask you care to mention. And to take you on another little side argument as well, there's loads of discussions to be had here, but to take you on another little direction, I'm trying to wrap my head around why certain parts of the rum community will throw shade at Plantation, for example, for aging their rums in French cognac barrels. And yet those very same people are totally fine with rum being aged in sherry casks. Now, okay, admittedly, Plantation may and do add certain amounts of sugar to their rums, but they are open and honest about that. They do not hide that. They tell you on the bottles and on the websites how much sugar has been added. And let's be brutally honest for a second, all sugar is doing is adding a level of sweetness to a rum, in some cases to hide defects, if you want to call it that, from rum, or in some cases maybe to make it sweeter so it appeals to the wider audience. But as I said, aging in sherry casks will also add a certain amount of sweetness. So if we're absolutely cool with aging in sherry casks, should we be absolutely cool with adding healthier sugar alternatives like honey, like agave, or even sugarcane honey? Because some brands use that, and that is accepted because it isn't sugar. Now, to me, if I'm being brutally honest, if you discount all those flavoured and spiced rums that don't do it properly, discount them. I'm just focusing on the brands that do it properly, all those spiced and flavoured rums that do it properly, then please, what is the actual difference between sherry cask or port cask or Madeira cask or cognac cask or whatever cask? What is the actual difference in those casks versus adding spices and flavours to a rum? Because I really can't answer that definitively at the moment. There might be a big crucial thing that I'm missing in this whole chain of events of aging in sherry casks compared to proper spiced rums. I'll hold my hands up to that. There might be something I'm completely missing, but I don't think there is. So I want to hear from you guys. I want you to put your arguments in the comments below. Help to educate me and help to educate the wider community. Is sherry cask rum completely and totally and utterly different from proper spiced and flavoured rums? Or is sherry cask just a posher way of saying flavoured rums, which makes rum geeks, rum connoisseurs feel better about drinking it? Let me know below.